We'll be starting up here in a couple of minutes. Just going to get everybody logged in, and we'll start up the top of the hour. You going to ask them to raise their hands, Adam?
What I was going to do is just, if they wanted to, they could just respond in the Q&A.
Okay. Well, just as we introduce things, just
Yeah,
can do it either way. It's amazing how helpful it is to have the ladies in the back
I
clearing
know,
things for
I
us.
know. I'm with
About
you on that one.
a minute and a half more, folks, and we'll get started here. Okay, we're going to get our last burst here, Adam, of folks finding out the last second,
Excellent.
and then we will get ourselves started. Okay, we'll give folks 20 more seconds just to give them their last little chance to get in here. Okay, good morning and welcome to one of our foundational webinars. You can see the schedule behind me and on the screen, but it's probably really tiny, but that's okay. Uh, this is one of our foundational webinars. I'm David Orr. I'm the director here with the Cornell Local Roads program. We're your New York State LTAP Center, and this is one of 11 foundational webinars we're doing over the summer. And we're actually looking at our schedule for this coming winter and next summer. So if you've got an idea or suggestion for webinars we could do, now is the time to get them in because we'll be submitting that schedule, at least the draft version of it, to the State Department of Transportation and our advisory panel here in the next few weeks. So today's webinar is managing a highway maintenance fleet, and our instructor today is Adam Fitzpatrick, who is with Alfred State College. He runs their heavy equipment operations program. I get to have the honor of serving on the advisory panel for that particular group, and it's a fantastic program that helps young women and men become operators of equipment and understand the math that goes behind it, which is part of what Adam's going to talk about today. He's been with Alfred State for 6 years
Yeah.
and started essentially in the middle of COVID. So,
Yeah.
so Adam,
Yes.
I'll let you get started, and we'll stop in and do polls in a minute. Folks should open up their Q&A and chat pods. The Q&A pod will be where you can answer questions, and the chat pod is where you can get links to a handout which has resources you might want to use later on. Okay, it's all yours, Adam. I'm going to go dark unless I need to say something.
All right. Thanks, David. I appreciate it. Yes, as David said before, my name is Adam Fitzpatrick. I am from Alfred State College for the Heavy Equipment Operations program. I've been there 6 years. I am starting my seventh year in the fall for our fall semester. Um, Today, we're just going to be talking about, efficient, cost-effective, and productive fleet operations. Lots and lots of issues arise having a fleet. Ourselves, we have a very, very large fleet. It comes and goes on years and how, what the types of equipment is and all that kind of stuff. And we take a lot of that into consideration when we are planning our fleet. Okay. Some of the objectives today: understand the fundamentals of an effective fleet management, learn how fleet size and equipment selection affect productivity and budget. So, like you out there, we have a limited budget. I know a lot of your municipalities have limited budgets. So, how can we make the most of that budget? Um, and what do we need to do? What do we need for the actual year? What we're doing? Projects, things like that. Explore maintenance practices, inventory tracking, and record keeping. And I can't stress this enough. This is very, very big. Um, we have had the opportunity to purchase some new equipment, and it has come with some fantastic tracking on it. We've also implemented a program ourselves for record keeping and tracking on all of our equipment, to where when I trade something in, it looks a lot better for the person that's possibly going to be purchasing that piece of equipment. So real quick, I just wanted to do an introductory poll. So David, I don't know.
Oh,
Jody will do them in the
yep,
Okay,
background. It's amazing.
yep.
And by
perfect,
the way, if
perfect.
you're wondering, folks who are listening in, we're doing the polls via the Zoom today, right inside of the Zoom link. So rather than separate. So first one should be up.
Yep. First one is I work for. So we have some town, city, village, state, and federal. All right, sorry, 1 second. Of course, my computer's acting up. All right, so we're going to end that poll, share results. So
Nobody's
we have
working for the
some for the
weekend today.
weekend.
Nobody's working for the weekend today. That's good.
All right. Next one, my job is administration, highway soup, engineer, field crew, board member, or none of the above. If you hit none of the above, if you want to put that into the Q&A, feel free. Give it a few more seconds. All right, so we have some engineers, some highway and DPW commissioners, and administration. And last one. Oh, hold on. Stop share. Now I can hold. Sorry, guys. All right, now we can go. Years in current position. So, looks like it's all across the board from less than a year to we have some 11 to 20 years. All right. Adam, I'm going to throw it back your way.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right. So let's discuss it. Why fleet management matters. Okay. So operational efficiency. Right equipment, right, is available when needed, reducing project delays. So if we know that we need to do a certain task and we want to have that piece of equipment there and ready to go, we don't have to worry about any delays or downtime trying to, get a piece of equipment or relocate something or things like that. So make sure that we have our operational efficiency. Okay. Cost control. Okay, this is big. So this will help reduce the fuel, repair, and replacement costs through smart planning. Okay. We all know that diesel fuel is very expensive and we have to deal with that every day. Repairs are very expensive. I mean, uh, air filters, fuel filters, oil filters. I mean, just basic maintenance is getting to be very, very costly. So anything that we can do to kind of front load all of that to be able to uh, carry us along, that's what we're going to want to do. Um, Workforce productivity minimizes downtime so workers aren't waiting on the equipment. Okay, so if instead of maybe we need to have another person that day do this bigger job instead of say maybe mowing roadsides or something like that, let's do that, and that way we can kind of speed that process up, right? Some of those other jobs they might need to be put, as we say, on the back burner for a little bit, just to make sure we get the big jobs done first. Excuse me. Public accountability. demonstrates responsible stewardship of taxpayer resources. Okay. Taxpayers, we all know we've been out on the roads before. Before this, I was part of the municipality industry myself. You get those people that stop and say, "Well, what am I paying my taxes for?" and doing this and doing that. This is where we need to make sure, and when we show them and we look and say, "Listen, this is what we've got going on," and they actually will start to understand things, right? You've had those people that say, "Well, how come?" You're putting all this money into this road and not this road. Well, a little bit of accountability and explaining things to people goes a long ways. Okay. Safety and compliance ensures equipment meets safety and environmental standards. So instead of, well, you've got to do this, this, and this to try to get it started, maybe we need to talk about, possibly doing some updates, doing things, just to get that piece of equipment fixed or all of that kind of stuff. I mean, we don't want any safety issues to come down because not only is it going to hurt you operational wise, but also cost wise too, because we've got, bills and everything else coming up, medical bills if somebody gets hurt, things like that. Data driven decisions. Okay, provides insight for better budgeting, maintenance, and acquisition. So we'll cover this a little bit later, but what we're talking about there is, can we plan our budget a little bit more for this new piece of equipment if we need it? And if we do need it, how do we acquire that? Can we take a certain piece that we're not using or it's getting to be outdated and trade it in towards that piece? I mean, there's the opportunities are endless, and we just need to make sure we know, when it comes down to it, what we're looking for. Okay. Uh, this I just wanted to throw in there, and you guys can answer in the Q&A, or raise your hands or what however you see fit. But just kind of wanted to take a little poll. I mean, what is the size of your fleet? Right. Let's just see what we're dealing with here. What is everybody primarily looking at? How many pieces do you actually have in your fleet? And I'll give you a couple of seconds to answer that.
So we have a couple coming in, Adam. Says too small. So for everyone listening, it's not a poll question. You're just going to put the answers into the Q&A.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, we have a lot of people answering too small.
I feel them. I feel their pain too. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. I appreciate the input. Let's talk about the actual right size for your fleet. When I started with the college, we kind of had a little bit of an overcapacity. We had too many pieces of equipment that, we didn't use, right? Or we couldn't use. There was a lot of stuff that was up against the fence line that, probably shouldn't be used, things like that, right? So what we're looking for is avoiding the overcapacity. So we take a look at that and we say, okay, we've got way too many vehicles, we've got way too much stuff sitting around here. What it ends up doing is it creates that unnecessary cost for insurance, storage, depreciation. Now, we look at that and go, well, okay, but if we're still answering that we have too small of a fleet, why would we want to get rid of some of that stuff? Well, because when it comes down to it, if you start looking at that, you could take some of the stuff that you have that you don't even really realize that you have it, take some of that stuff and trade it for a piece of equipment that you would utilize, and you would utilize that almost daily. Right now, you're actually starting to get that fleet right where you want it, right where you could actually use it, and you don't have that lull, or we don't have to pay for the storage, we don't have to try to deal with all of the, well, we use it once a year, so that means we've got to spend 3 weeks to go through it to make sure everything works on it, when that machine is being used all the time. Okay. This also helps with depreciation, right? So right now, I can tell you, and I can attest to this, that this is a trading market. So we're getting some really good deals off of our trades on new equipment. The longer you let it sit, the worse off it's going to be. So if you have that piece that's sitting there, yeah, you know what, we could probably do without that if we got this instead. Let's think about getting rid of it so that it's less overhead that you have to worry about. Avoid undercapacity. So now let's talk about the other side of this. Too few vehicles. Now we're talking about work delays, rental costs, overused equipment, right? So there is that happy medium because let's take the excavator for example. Now we're using it way too much, or some places that just don't have one, so now they have to rent one. Well, if you're going to rent one, now we need to make sure that we rent it for a month or 2 months, right? Well, that's all the initial cost. So then you have to actually kind of look at that. Is it cost effective, right? So optimize the availability, balance need for readiness with actual usage. So what we do is we have at any given time throughout the year, we have over 30 pieces of equipment that our students use to learn on. But that is a mix of what we own and what we rent. Okay, we rent because we don't have to maintain some of that, right? We have enough to do our maintenance programs. We have enough to instruct the students on how to do that. But in some aspects, it saves us money. An air filter for a truck is getting to be $200-300, right? Or anything for that matter. So if I don't have to pay that, that actually helps, right? But on the flip side of that, we also, work with our vendors very closely and we tie hours to it. So that way we say, okay, we're going to go this many hours and we're not going to go over that. This helps buffer the cost and it also helps us get the jobs done at the same time. So it's kind of one of those things that you have to look at and say, do I want to own it or do I want to rent it just for that little bit of time to actually have it here, do what I need to do, and then I don't have to maintain it after the fact, right? So you have to look at that. Basic goal here is to maintain just enough equipment to handle peak demands efficiently. Like with most municipalities, you've got a lot of truck maintenance that you have to do, but again, the trucks are necessary, especially come snow and ice season, right? So all of that kind of stuff you want to look at and say, okay, well, does it make more sense just to have it for a little bit, or does it make more sense to actually own it? Okay. So now, analyzing our equipment needs. So let's look at that. So when we talk about equipment needs, look back and say to yourself, did we actually use this thing enough last year? Or what did we ever use it for? There's places around that have uh, bulldozers that they don't even use, right? Or they just sit there. I mean, it's endless. There's equipment everywhere. The biggest thing is, does it does it pay off to own it, or does it pay off to just say, you know what, I can get it in for a little bit? Job specific demands, right? We all know that ditching is a huge demand that's always there. So basically, what are we going to need? We're going to need that excavator, right? Now, some other places say, well, let's do a backhoe. Well, backhoes take longer, right? They're a lot worse to set up. Yes, you might be able to drive it to the site, but do you need that backhoe? You have a loader, right? You need the excavator. You could use the excavator for other things. So just evaluate what you have, right? Ask the operators and the foreman. They're the ones that are the boots on the ground. They know what they're doing. They know what they need, and just ask them their opinion. Once they give you that opinion, take that back and actually look at it and say, you know what? They're the ones that have to do it. If this is what they want, this is what we're going to do. Okay. If they look at it and say, you know what, for us to maintain it, it just doesn't make sense. They're there. They know. Okay. Um, so just one of those things. Evaluate emergency needs. So emergency needs, I mean, and lately we've been having a lot of this flooding, right? We've been having a lot of natural disaster stuff. So making sure that you have the equipment around that, you could utilize for that. It could be as simple as a chainsaw. Make sure you have enough chainsaws. Make sure they're running. Make sure you've got somebody out there testing them every 2 or 3 weeks to just to run them a little bit, all of that kind of stuff. You just want to make sure that you have what you need when the time comes. Okay. For the most part, you guys have all the trucks and everything else. So, you're pretty good there. Um, so our next poll, real quick, like again, question answer. Which of the following do you own? Okay. So just in general, which of these do you actually own instead of renting and even throw it in there? Do you rent some of this stuff? I mean, it would be great to know what you've got kind of going on there.
Hey, Adam, would you like that turned into a poll? Give me about 30 seconds.
We could do that. Yes, that would be
So keep
great if
talking
you
on
could do
something
that.
else. I'll pop a poll real quick.
Yes, absolutely. While he's doing that, we can move a little bit farther here. So strategies for right sizing. Okay. Identify underutilized units, equipment sharing, renting for rare needs, fleet rotation, right? So we talked about the identifying the underutilized units. I mean, it's that piece that's always just sitting out back. We only use it once or twice. Equipment sharing. This is fantastic, and I love this. Get with your other local towns, right? Or municipalities or whatever and say, hey, look, I could use this for this month. You could use it for this. Do you want to go in and we'll try to rent it for this amount of time and kind of help each other out? Or, if we do it for 1 month, I can send some guys over to help you. You can send some guys over to help me. It's equipment sharing is a great way to maximize your budget that you have that we all know is very limited, right? Renting for those rare needs instead of actually owning it. Say, listen, I don't actually want to own this thing. I just want to rent it just for this much. I just need it for a couple of days and that's it. That's all we got. Okay. And fleet rotation plans. Start thinking about how you're going to get the maximum out of your actual fleet, right? Is that we have the piece of equipment for X amount of years and then we trade it in. That's what we do. What we try to do is when I purchase a new piece of equipment, I get a 5 year warranty on it. Year 4, year 5, we're starting to think about getting rid of that piece of equipment and get something new just so I have an actual warranty all the time on that piece of equipment. It just goes a long ways.
Can you go back to your list real quick for me, Adam? Make sure I didn't miss something. And then we'll open the poll up. Oh, I got to add one more. Hang on. Almost done. Yes, yes. I may have added other things, but okay.
That's all right. That's okay.
Save. There we go. Launch. See if this worked. Ignore question 2. I put a fake question in there, but you should be able to check now. Loader, roller, crane, paver, grader, backhoe, bucket truck, other. I missed dozer. I'm sorry.
Perfect.
Let's see what we got. You should be able to do more than one. So we should be able to see percentages, Adam.
Excellent.
Give them another 15 seconds, and I did miss dozer, but you could have them raise their hand on dozers.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, and if you put other in there and it's not a dozer, put it in the Q&A for us. Okay, I'm going to end the poll, and I will share the results. And as you can see, most people have a loader.
Yep.
Most people have a roller. Only a couple have a crane. A few have a paver. A few have a grader. Most have a backhoe. Over half have a bucket truck of some type.
I
Okay,
see that.
and
I like
then
that.
and then we
That's a
have
good piece to have.
and then we're getting a couple of folks in the Q&A for other. Somebody put excavator. And again, we could have them raise their hands if they have a dozer. Raise your hand if you
Yes.
have a dozer.
Yes.
Tim, you have a dozer. Just one raise their hand for a dozer. So, okay. There you go, Adam. There's your fleet.
Excellent. Thank you, David.
Not a problem. We love to help.
Perfect. Oh, okay. So tracking use and aging. Let's get into that for a minute. So set utilization benchmarks. So what we do, like I said before, when I was talking about this previously, we'd like to assign hours to our equipment. Um, Now, granted, we've got a lot of students, so those hours kind of rack up pretty fast. So we try to make sure that we spread the wealth throughout all of our equipment, which means a lot of tracking. Most of our rentals, lease agreements, things like that, we try to do about 250 to 300 hours for the students. Now, you might be more, you might be less. So, you need to come up with that decision, that number. Um, but when we do that, right now, I have to go around, and it is a little bit more work, but you go around, you check those things, and you see actually how much that is. And what we'll do is we'll take all of our stuff that we actually own, all of our equipment that we own, and we will write down the hours at the beginning of the year, and then the last day of class, we'll write down all the hours at the end. So now we know what we used throughout the whole year. It gives us that actual idea on what we're going to need, and it helps us update our rental agreements for the following year as well. If we know that we've got some of the same or similar projects coming up, then we say, okay, well, the following year we're going to need that same amount of hours, or maybe just a little bit more. So let's try that. So make sure you track that usage so that way you know what your actual benchmarks are, so you know how to gauge that. Know your equipment life cycles. This is key, especially when it comes to excavators, rollers, loaders, things like that. How long is this thing going to actually last me? Biggest thing also with that is, when I do this, am I going to be able to make that last for 5 or 6 years and still have something good at the end to trade in, or possibly, sell, so that way we can get something new? Okay. So pay attention to that kind of stuff. Know those equipment life cycles to make sure you phase those out. For me, like I said before, all of our mini excavators, a mini excavator is it's a well built machine, but it's not built enough to withstand some of the large frame stuff that happens. So you look at it and go, okay, within 5 years, I want to make sure that I don't have to worry about anything. So I'm going to get rid of it before the warranty is up. So that way I always have that, right? Use GPS and telematics. This is fantastic, and I love it. I literally just had an issue last semester. We had a John Deere bulldozer. It was throwing some codes. 5-star John Deere actually called me up and said, "Hey, it triggered on our end. We're all set. I'm going to go right in, look everything over." Within 15 seconds, we had the cause. We had a schedule for somebody to come down and service that machine. Okay. I didn't even have to tell him where it was because he knew exactly where it was. All of this stuff is fantastic. And you can also go in there and see how you're actually using that, right? Is the machine being overworked? Maybe we should kind of cut back a little bit. All of those things are fantastic tracking devices, so you know how everything is and how to get the most out of your piece of equipment. It's by far, hands down, we love it. All manufacturers are doing it now. Cat, Case, John Deere. I mean, they all have their own versions, but all equally great. And then let's look at our replacement triggers, right? Let's look at that kind of stuff and say, okay, well, for instance, let's take a look at a bulldozer. Does that bulldozer need a new set of tracks on it? Well, if it needs new tracks, then you need new rollers, you need new idlers, you need new sprockets. I mean, how much is this thing going to cost me? Is that a point where I look at it and go, okay, well, maybe it's time that we start thinking about a new one? Okay. Now, again, you still have to weigh those pros and cons, because we all know that a brand new piece of equipment right now is very expensive. But those are all those things that we look at and say, okay, so let's justify. Do we actually need the bulldozer? Do we use it enough? Right. So those types of things. So let's do some defining equipment requirements. Collaborate across departments. Okay. So if you have multiple departments in your area, listen, maybe the water department needs an excavator, but you also need one as well, but you're not going to use it all the time. Well, let's take a look at this. Maybe they would, again, that shared service, that shared help, you could float that across the whole thing. Match to the application. Actually look at what you're doing and say, okay, do I need something this big, or can I kind of cut back a little bit, right? So those are the kind of things that we're doing. Local conditions, okay? Where are you putting it? What is it going to be used for? Those kinds of things. Is it going to be in inclement weather, snow, things like that? What, all that kind of stuff, look at to see what that piece of equipment is going to require. We recently just purchased a brand new bulldozer, and I had to make sure it had the cold weather package on it. It's an open station bulldozer, but it still needs a cold weather package because I need to be able to get it started, right? So the block heaters and all that kind of stuff. So all that kind of stuff, take a look at it. Avoid over specking. Okay. We deal with this a lot, especially because we have a lot of eyes that see where our money goes. And we have a lot of people that look at us and say, do you need all the bells and whistles? Right. So that's kind of one of those things where you need to look at it and say, well, do we really need all that? Well, like here again, though, the next issue you're going to have is a lot of that stuff comes standard right from the factory anyways. Right. So that's one of those things that you need to kind of justify or tell them. It's like, hey, listen, you know, we had no choice in the matter. It just comes that way, right? So, but on the other end of that spectrum is, do you need all the other stuff that goes with it? Do you need the heated seats or all that kind of stuff? Those are the types of things that you could kind of outweigh, right? This one is just a quick little poll, like again, Q&A. Have you standardized your truck fleet, right? Is everything pretty much the same, or do you have different things all over the place? Okay, so just take a couple of seconds, throw it in the Q&A. I mean, do we have multiples of, let's say Western Star, Peterbilt, or are they all the same?
Looks like 5 or 6, Adam, in the Q&A have said yes or very similar.
Okay. And that's perfect. That's perfect because that leads us right into the next thing. Benefits of fleet standardization. So it simplifies our maintenance, right? So now we know that if we have, let's say, 4 trucks, and they're all basically the same. Now we can order all of the same standard parts, all of the same, fuel filters, oil filters, air filters, all that kind of stuff, and it just keeps everything together, right? We don't have to worry about having this random filter sitting on the shelf because it fits something else, right? So it simplifies our maintenance. Okay. Along with that is the operator familiarity. So we all end up helping each other out. If you're going to do the maintenance on it, if you're going to do the oil changes and the greasing and all that, now if somebody else climbs under that truck and says, oh yeah, mine's the same way, I know where everything is, so now they can help, right? Speeds the process along, and now we have less downtime for all of our equipment, right? Streamlined procurement, right? Say we're going to order a bunch of trucks. If we order them all the same, now they can all move a lot down the assembly line a lot faster than, well, this one's going to be different, or this one's got a different manufacturer for the box and the snow and ice equipment. All that kind of stuff goes a long ways, along with the fact that, if something does break down and one truck's not being used, or, there's another issue with another truck, we can actually kind of, you hate to do it, but you can take parts off one, put on the other until you get all the parts back in to fix both of them at the same time, right? So those are the types of things that we can do. Training efficiency. everybody would have the same situations, the same opportunities for all the same trainings. You wouldn't have to change anything. They all know where everything is at the same time. I mean, granted, I know there's, certain people that want, the wing towers in different places and things like that. But if you go down and you look, if that person's not in that day and somebody else has to drive that truck, at least now you know that they're all the same, they're familiar, they know how to do it, and we're good to go. Okay. So that's kind of one of those things that I like to see a lot of standardized equipment just for the simple fact that it makes your life way easier down the line. Excuse me. Maximizing equipment flexibility. Okay. Multi-function equipment. So anything, that you can put on the excavator would be great. Any attachments you can put on the loaders, that would be great too. They're all multifunction. We can do multiple things with them, right? Um, Same with the backhoe. I mean, backhoes are still in use for industry every day. We train students on backhoes every day. A lot of your utility companies are still using them. They like them because they have an excavator on the rear and a loader on the front. So it's the best of both worlds. You get a 2-for-1 deal. So it's that type of equipment that if you think would work better for your fleet, definitely go ahead and start streamlining towards that, right? Start planning towards having that fleet ready to go for all types of different things. And what's really nice is like with the backhoes and the loaders and even the skid steers, right? All those new attachments that they're coming out with. I mean, the attachments are endless, but you can literally do every job with them. Okay. So think about that. Next thing, your year-round utility. Literally, you can use it all year round. Nothing's parked down back in cold storage or anything like that because that piece of equipment is set and ready to go and it's always there. And it makes it cost efficient, right? So now what you can take and say is instead of being able to deduct my monthly over 9 months because I'm only using it 9 months, I can actually start doing it over 12 months, which is going to actually make it to where, it costs a little bit less to own that piece every year. So that's one of those things that you start to think of too. Evaluating equipment investments. So total cost of ownership. Okay. Look beyond purchase price. Okay. So when we say total cost of ownership and looking beyond the purchase price, what we're talking about here is when I purchase, let's say, a brand new loader, right? I know it's going to be X amount of dollars. But in the grand scheme of things, is it going to be that or is it going to be more, right? So now I look at the total cost of ownership. That includes all of your maintenance on it. That includes all of the registrations, the insurance, the storage, all of that kind of stuff that you would need on, right? So now we look at that and we go, okay, so in order for me to make this a little bit better investment for the town, right? Um, Maybe we should go a little bit lighter on the fancy stuff inside, or maybe we don't need such a large loader. Maybe we go one size lower, right? Things like that can go a long ways to changing the price and changing the investment for the town. Now, it could also go the other way. You might look at it and say, okay, if I go with one size bigger, it could possibly last us longer. So that's going to stretch that cost of ownership out a little bit, and it's going to bridge those payments and make it a little bit less, right? Parts and service availability. That's huge, right? There's a lot of places that you can't get the hoses for this. You have to go over here to get the hoses because let's say Napa doesn't make that type of hose or, all that kind of stuff. So if you look at that, you say, okay, well, is it going to be more of a pain or a hassle to have the maintenance and the upkeep on this piece versus this one, right? So kind of look at that. And then again, expected service life. How long do you want to actually own this loader, right? Let's say we're going to want to keep this loader for 8 years, 10 years, something like that. this is what we're expecting that to actually be. Okay. So just take those into consideration on everything. You are literally making an investment. Okay. Um, Here's another one that I wanted you guys to kind of put some input on. How long do you expect to keep a new dump truck? Right. I hear a lot of different things. And please feel free to put your answers in the Q&A. I hear a lot of people say, oh, we try to keep them as long as possible. Well, that's great, but is that going to be cost effective for you? Right. So, it's kind of one of those things. Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of 10 to 15, which is about normal. I have run into a couple of people I've talked to that are upwards of 20 years. Um, Yeah, a lot of 10 and 15s, a couple of eights. I'm surprised. That's fairly quick turnaround, but that's not uncommon. It's not a bad thing by any means either. It's very good to keep your trucks updated, especially in the type of work that we're in. Those are the bloodline for everything that we do. So, but I think once you get past the 15 years, I think what ends up happening is you're going to lose a lot of depreciation down the line. And you got to be careful with that because, again, we still need to get rid of these vehicles, and it makes it a lot harder. Even, if you start saving it up 20 years, it's going to make it a lot harder to get rid of that truck. Somebody else or trying to find somebody else to buy it. The importance of tracking. Prevent equipment loss or misplacement. And I'm going to be totally honest, we've had it. Before we started our tracking program, we had quite a few times where it's like, where did this piece end up? Right? We weren't quite sure. We've been really busy. We've been moving things, all that kind of stuff. So you just make sure you know where everything is. And this is one of those deals where you can use that telematics to actually do that, right? It'll tell you where it is. It'll tell you all of the fluids on it and everything else. So that kind of that kind of deal is perfect in that aspect. Okay. It also will help you monitor your utilization. So, I ran into a guy a few months ago. He actually was out talking with our students, and we were talking, and he said, geez, we were actually talking about mills. It was a 8-foot road mill, and he said that mill that he had dropped off to show the students was sitting in our shop for I believe it was 5 days, 5 days straight. And he said, that really bugs me. And I said, well, how did you know that? He said, because I have all of the monitoring on that piece of equipment. He says, and that piece of equipment cost me a lot of money just to have it sit there. And I said, no, I understand that, but he also understands that this is the type of thing we have to do. But at the same time, he was also juggling with the idea of getting rid of it because if it's sitting for that much time, do you actually need that third or fourth piece of equipment that you're not going to use, right? Are you getting to that point where maybe things are starting to slow down and you don't need all that? So that's kind of one of those things where you're going to look, you're going to see, and it helps you to actually support the budget and planning. Okay. So when we talk about budget and planning, we know we get this much money, right? And we try to plan everything around the first of the year or whatever your turnaround date is. And you say, okay, I'm going to get the new money, right? At this time, how are we going to use it? What are we going to do? Let's plan the jobs. Let's see what we've got. Let's see if there's anything that we're going to need extra to be able to do that. Okay. So make sure you do that. Comply with all the audits and regulations. We all know that there's a lot of that stuff around. We always have to make sure that, obviously you're going to get all of your bids and all that kind of stuff and do all that. So make sure you follow those to a T because they will come back and audit you. Key inventory data points. So basic details. We came up with a little bit of a spreadsheet for all of our stuff, and this is all it has on it, right? So it has the year, the make, the model, VIN number, serial number, whatever the case may be. And engine hours, fuel, and mileage. Okay. Yes, we do take a look at our fuel consumption, especially with some of our new stuff that has it right on there, inundated right in the system. So it allows us to actually see if the students are performing better. If not, how much fuel we're actually using, because we need to budget for that as well for down the line. So it helps. Okay. Location and assignment. We actually have a big whiteboard in our office, and we've got all of our equipment listed. And where is that piece of equipment? What is it there for? Uh, who is in charge of that piece of equipment out of all of our instructors? Okay. Condition and status. If we have one that is in need of repair, it's always in the shop. It's locked out. It's tagged out. But we also have it on the board that it is out of service for repair or something like that. Okay. Maintenance records, last service date, upcoming due dates for any of that kind of stuff. Always make sure and keep that on. Okay, keep that up to date. It always helps for better usage of time, trying to eliminate as much downtime as possible. Quick poll again, Q&A. Do you have a full equipment inventory? If yes, fleet software, do you guys utilize it computer wise, or do you have a paper inventory? Some, might not even have an inventory, and some may even only have a partial. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to answer on those. Yeah. Seeing that, I love the software. Software is great. Spreadsheets are well, any form of tracking is perfect. It just you need to make sure that you're on the ball with that, making sure that you can see what you've got going on. Software obviously makes it that much easier because you can link it right to your phones and iPads, things like that. But I've run into a couple of them that don't have anything, and then they sit there and they wonder why they're having issues, and it's pretty evident that you might need to increase that. Fleet management software. So we've got a lot of your software that comes right standard on all of your equipment. Okay, your GPS, your telematics. Okay, manual logs, less ideal. Got more paperwork, but still, it's still beneficial. Okay. Turning inventory data into action. So replace low use assets. Okay. So if we're not going to use it, let's think about getting rid of it. Okay. Redistribute underused equipment. Okay. So if you've got a couple of pieces and one's not being used as much, but one is, maybe you take that other one and move it to a different location where it's going to get some use. Okay. Set replacement priorities. Make sure that we have a plan for that. Optimize rentals versus ownership. Like I said, we do both. We find it works good for us just so we don't have to maintain all that stuff. But at the same time, it still gives us a little bit of freedom for a little bit of extra budgeting that we can utilize. Okay. Minimizing downtime. Equipment impacts on crew efficiency. So we're going to minimize our downtime. Right equipment for the right job, avoid workarounds, backup units, reduce delays. So when we talk about minimizing our downtime, right, and the right equipment at the right time, crews out there, they're ready to go, but the equipment is down, right? So now we've got everybody sitting there on the side of the road, not being able to do anything. So let's make sure that everything is up, ready to go, so the guys can get out there, they can do the job, they can have it all set. Now, having said that, is that box culvert too far off the road to where we need to have something else? Well, yeah, we're going to need, instead of a wheeled excavator, we need a track excavator. So, okay, so let's make sure we get that track excavator here on the date that we want it, so that way we know the very next day we can start that work, or, things like that. Okay. Backup units, reduce delays. So if you have one, and you have a second one and it just sits there, that's great. And if it's not costing you any money, that's great too. But it can help. Okay. Especially with like loaders or like bucket tractors, something like that. Loader goes down, you're trying to load salt. if you had a tractor with a front loader on it, or if you had a spare loader sitting there or something, you're always going to be able to be up and running. So keep that in mind as well. Matching equipment to a task. Okay, so this is going to reduce our manual labor, increases our daily output, right? So now we can move faster, boosts worker morale. Okay, so a lot of guys are going to sit there and go, well, hey, I don't have to get down in the hole as much because he can shape it better with the bucket on this or do this, things like that. So that's going to actually help. This also improves on safety, right? It keeps all of your people out of harm's way, so to speak, when the work is being done. Scope of work, ditching with a backhoe versus a grade all versus an excavator, right? You need to start looking at those. Same with brush. Can you do it with a chainsaw, or should you just do a boom mower, or something like that, right? Skid steer with attachment for multiple jobs. All those different things match that equipment to the actual task you're trying to do. It's just going to work that much better and a lot safer. Real quick in the Q&A, what piece of equipment would you purchase to help productivity? Okay, what piece of equipment does your place really wish they could have to actually help with everything? I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. Paver, grader. Yeah, see, boom truck is big. Boom truck is very, very big. New forklift. Yep. Seen quite a few grader, which is good. Yes, all perfect. All very nice pieces that definitely do help the productivity down the line. Comfort equals performance, right? So if they're comfortable, it's going to reduce the fatigue, fewer breaks and errors, attract skilled operators, long-term health. Okay, so if it's a better seat in the machine, let's update it. Let's get to that point where that operator is willing to sit in a lot longer. Okay. Along with just the machine itself. If it has a better suspension, maybe it's a little bit less brakes on the piece of equipment. Now, granted, an excavator is very hard to do, but there's other pieces that you could be utilizing. Attracting skilled operators. So say you've got the old grader sitting out back, but then you've got a brand new one with joystick control. Somebody might be really, really interested in that and enjoy that, right? They're willing to come to your place of employment to run that piece of equipment because they like that. So that's one of those things that you need to kind of pay attention to. It's very, very, very important. Okay. And it also promotes the long-term health. Why preventive maintenance matters. So it prevents costly breakdowns, extends equipment life, keeps crews safe, improves reliability. So, and it's just as simple as doing the oil changes, doing the, blowing out your air filters, just, checking your fluids, all that kind of stuff. If you do that, it will help you actually perform better because now you don't ever have that downtime. You don't have that, oh, geez, well, I didn't check the oil and the motor's now got a little bit of an issue to it. Well, you probably should have checked it. Those types of things go a long ways. Okay. These are some of the same sheets that we use every day. All of our students do them. They all do pre-ops. They all do walkarounds. They document everything, bring it back to us, and then we will actually log it into our system, what the deficiencies are, if there are any, or if there wasn't anything, things like that. This is big. Real quick, Q&A. Do you have a dedicated mechanic for your program, or is it just the operators that are doing it? Okay. That is very key. Yeah, too. Yes. See, and that's just it. You're talking, expanding your fleet. You're going to want those multiples either there or, even on standby, things like that. Okay. With that, it gives you the in-house advantages. They're always there. They're always ready to go, and you don't have any issues. Outsourcing benefits. Okay. Hybrid approach. You can do kind of a little bit of both. Staffing considerations. Look at the staff that you have. They might be mechanically inclined to be actually able to do the job. So, those types of things keeps the fleet going hands down all the time. Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind. Consequences of poor maintenance: increased downtime, higher long-term costs, reduced resale value, safety risks. Okay. Um, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just going to sit there. It just turns into a giant paperweight. So we don't want that. So make sure that you try to take as much time as you can and keep all that stuff going. Keep those maintenance programs up and running so that way you guys can run as a whole a lot more efficient. Okay, excuse me. Purchase price versus life cycle cost. Okay, high initial cost may save you over time. Okay, track operating cost per hour or mile. Okay, we could do that. Budget with long-term view, right? So you could literally start doing a payment plan for a while just to see if you like it, or if you're going to want to. It might knock some money off of the overall purchasing price down the line. Okay, so you need to look at it from a standpoint of the purchase price versus the true cost of the machine. What's it actually going to cost you to have that machine versus the upfront, real quick, money exchange. Okay. Strategic equipment disposal: monitor resale values, track market trends. I can tell you right now that trade values right now are very high. So we've been able to trade quite a few pieces of equipment and in turn purchase some other piece of equipment for pennies on the dollar. I mean, it's right now is a really good market. So just keep that in mind. You might be able to just take, instead of, we're just going to throw that loader on, the auctions website, find a dealer that might have a wholesaler, right? If they have a wholesaler, you get all of that money up front, and it's probably going to be a whole lot larger than what you're going to get at auction. And you can take that money towards and put it towards the other piece of equipment that you're looking for. So look at those, track that market trend. Condition affects the price. Obviously, let's look at this thing. If it looks okay, if it looks overall in good shape, then we don't worry about it. But in the meantime, there's things that we can do to actually maintain all that and keep that up to date as well. Okay. Plan replacements in advance. So if we know that we want it, let's get it done. Okay. Let's see. Replacement planning and forecasting. So let's use the fleet replacement schedule. Okay, that schedule that you've created, that you've said, okay, I'm going to keep a truck, 8 or 10 years. Probably about year 8, we're going to be wanting to try to get on that schedule and get it ready to go, so we're never down. Okay, set aside any capital money that you can, or even, like I say, the equipment that you're going to trade in for it. That's all capital. That's stuff that you can use. Okay. Prioritize high cost, high use units. So those are the ones that you're going to want to replace more frequently. Okay. Involve finance early. I've found that when you talk to them up front and give them the idea, it's a lot easier to work with them than against them. Okay. Because most of the time when you go to try to purchase that piece of equipment, you're in need of that equipment, and they can slow that process down. So make sure that you involve them, get them up to speed real quick, and make sure that you guys are all on the same page. Why keep maintenance records? Well, I can tell you right now, we keep maintenance records on everything that we have. Proof of compliance first. I mean, we get inspected all the time. We have people on, at the college that actually inspect all of our stuff, check all of our things, make sure that everything is up, for safety and all that. It also helps support the budget, improves resale value. So I take, every time I trade a piece of equipment in, I hand them a big giant folder that is full of all of the maintenance sheets that we've ever done on that piece of equipment. They are very thick, but when it comes down to it, it helps track the performance history, or it just helps track the history of that unit in general. Okay. And dealers love it. They think that is the greatest thing. So make sure that you have that history with it, because when people purchase, they know that it was taken care of. Okay. Essential maintenance data, services, service dates and types. We've covered this before, the hours, miles. Okay. Technician notes. Make sure you note on there, hey, it's starting to have this, nothing yet, but it could be an issue down the road. This is how much we actually put into it as far as cost, what the parts were, things like that. Okay. All of that helps. Recording methods, we kind of discussed this a little bit. Paper logs, they're simple, okay, but they're not as easy to update, right? Spreadsheets, you can go right in. We have right on an Excel spreadsheet that we go in. All of our instructors have access to it. We can actually go in if we've done any maintenance on a vehicle. We go in, we update it, and everybody's got the up to date, as quick as possible results. So something to think about for down the line. Okay. And I know I saw somebody was commenting that they were switching over to that software type. That's a fantastic. It's going to take a little bit of time to get used to, but you're going to love it in the long run. Benefits: purchasing new equipment and performing preventative maintenance. Okay. Newer equipment means less hours and repairs. Okay. Better equipment means more efficient use of labor and materials, less breakdowns. It's just simply more efficient. Okay. Some of the other stuff that you have out there could be from the 90s or early 2000s. Well, compare that to a newer one, it's a lot different. Okay. So, and again, I just purchased a skid steer 6 months ago, much safer than one that I purchased 4 years ago. It has all sorts of different backup stuff now, a lot of different things. So just one of those things that you got to kind of look at down the line. Okay. Let's see. So let's go, yeah, right here. Okay, so fleet replacement strategy. Planned replacement equals long-term savings. Okay, so policy: replace units every 8 to 10 years or after 6 to 10,000 hours. Okay, midlife assessment: units are evaluated at year 5. Okay, that's what we do. We evaluate about year 4 just to make sure that we are kind of on the right path. Okay. The benefits to this: avoid surprise failures and large repair bills. Budgeting becomes predictable. Okay. And then the spreadsheet based forecast updated annually. Okay. So our biggest thing is, and just like I said earlier, your budget is tight, our budget is tight. So you are not going to be ready to have that big, 40 or $50,000 repair that you need to. So if you keep up on this, you might not even absolutely have to do that. Okay. It takes an army. Managing a fleet is not for everyone. This takes a lot of effort. Okay. A lot of personnel that should be involved. Everyone involved must work as a team. Okay. And then the big key takeaways from this: right sizing is critical. Make sure you have the right size. Make sure you've got what you need. And that'll help you perform better. Okay. Buy smart. Okay. It doesn't necessarily always have to say a certain thing on the side of it. It can say something a little different, but it's a better value. Look at those things. Track everything. Maintain proactively. Okay. Use data to lead. Let's see. Self-assessment for your fleet, just something for you guys to think about and look at. Do you know how often each piece of equipment is actually used? Are you tracking the maintenance and usage in a structured digital way? Which either way doesn't matter. Have we evaluated whether our fleet is too big or too small? And are we budgeting for replacement before machines actually break down? So are you getting ready for that before anything happens? Okay. Any questions, concerns, anything like that, please feel free to put in the Q&A. Be more than happy to talk more if you need to. David, I think I'm ready to hand it over to you.
Okay, well, I'm just looking to see if there's any questions in the Q&A. I don't see any. Again, if you didn't get the handout, let us know. We can always email that to you. Next time we'll get the polls put in ahead of time, Adam. How about that?
Yeah.
It's okay. That was fun. I liked it. Great interaction. Um, so we can email the handout. We have your emails. You had to log in. So we'll figure out how to get it over to you. The main thing is the resources. They will also be linked on our website with the recording, so you can get them that way, the handout that way as well. Thanks again, Adam. And
Absolutely. My pleasure. Anytime.
you're very welcome. Amanda's going to answer the questions on the handout, and we're going to then we'll shut her down. Take care, Adam. Talk to you
Thank
later.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.